Hey fellow Earthlings, today let's talk about climate change. Yes, things are getting a little bit extreme, but you know what else is getting extreme? The response. It's getting extremely good. From 16-year-old Greta Thunberg, she has got to be Sweden's greatest export ever. Sorry, ABBA lovers. ABBA, 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 ABBA. You say ABBA, I definitely say ABBA, but it's not them, it's Greta. Her sitting outside the Houses of Parliament every Friday, being on strike, to make the point about how adults and our irresponsible use of fossil fuels has created this terrible mess for her generation. I mean, it's inspired a movement around the world. Kids walked out of school en masse for the school strike for climate, and their message is clear. You've got to start taking carbon emissions down in the opposite direction to where they're going now. And Greta isn't the only teenager who's doing adult education. There's also this young 13-year-old outside the UN headquarters in New York, our very own Alexandria Villaseñor. She's been there for months, and Politico has already named her one of the top 100 most influential people driving the climate change conversation. And the Tribeca Film Festival gave her the 2019 Disruptor Award. Go teenagers. And then there's the other Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, our youngest ever congresswoman, taking Capitol Hill by storm, teamed up with Senator ED Markey to write the Green New Deal, making the articulate and passionate case that climate change is not only the biggest ecological issue, but also the biggest social justice issue that we face. I want to point out that Senator Markey is the same Markey who teamed up with Henry Waxman 10 years ago to write the American Clean Energy and Security Act of 2009. Now, this piece of legislation was the first ever that addressed the need to reduce U.S. greenhouse gases, and guess what? It passed in Congress. Yeah, they were ready to tackle climate change. 10 years ago, unfortunately, the Senate could not get their act together. It died in the Senate, but Markey is back.
So, are you ready to rise up for wind? Are you ready to rise up for solar? Are you ready to rise up for a Green New Deal?
This was at the Sunrise Movement's Green New Deal rally in LA last month. As you can see, the energy, pretty infectious. The Sunrise Movement is on a US road trip, bringing Green New Deal rallies all over the country. If you haven't heard of the Sunrise Movement yet, well, they are a force to be reckoned with. They're a young grassroots movement. They are focused on climate change and political change. Of the 30 candidates who they endorsed for the 2018 election, 19 got in. They included Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, AOC, and Ilhan Omar. Last November, the Sunrise Movement staged a sit-in in House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's office. They were there to talk about the Green New Deal. They want every Democrat signed on. And they're not just going after Democrats. 250 of them stormed Mitch McConnell's. Well, they didn't storm. They very politely went to Mitch McConnell's office to tell him that as young Kentuckians, they were sick of him taking oil and gas money. Apparently, so far, it's $1.9 million. That's kind of outrageous, Mitch. Anyway, those young Sunrise Movement people put you on notice that they will do everything to help you not get elected in 2020 if you keep up with your oil and gas loving ways. Okay, I just have to say, it is such a relief that it's not just Bill McKibben and me single-handedly trying to get emissions back to the safe 350 parts per million mark anymore. Because it's not just grassroots movements and fed-up citizens and politics colliding. It's also big old oil and banking. They're getting in on the act. Shell Oil is embracing renewable electricity to the tune of $2 billion a year. It may seem antithetical for a big oil company to be investing in the very energy source that threatens their fossil-fueled empire, but Shell seems pretty committed to what they see as the world's inevitable shift to decarbonized energy, and so rather than being left out, they're opting in. And they're being pretty ambitious. They want to be the world's biggest electricity provider by 2030. Electricity is the easiest form of energy to have carbon-free. Now, of course, there's a lot of skepticism because they are the world's second largest oil producer. But I say if a big oil company wants to pivot and do the right thing, well, in one energy sector, then bring it on, Shell. Show us what you can do. Maybe oil and everything else, you'll tackle that next. Oh, sun came out, got warm. Then there are the 34 heads of international banks. They came together to form the Network for Greening the Financial System, the NGFS, and they believe that intervention by the financial sector is absolutely imperative to deal with climate change. Part of it is self-preservation. They don't want there to be a climate-induced Minsky moment. A Minsky moment is when there's a sudden economic collapse. In their first report, they lay out how all decisions, investment and managerial decisions, have to take into account climate risks, both long-term and short-term, how they have to have sustainable business practices within their own banks, and how there has to be transparent sharing of data. That makes absolute common sense to me. So the governor of the Bank of England is working behind the scenes to change our investment practices. He is writing op-ed pieces, and then meanwhile on the streets of London are the Extinction Rebellion. They are shutting London down in the most creative ways. They want their elected officials to know they're done with half-hearted attempts to tackle climate change and lower carbon emissions. A group of them got into the Houses of Parliament. They took their clothes off and they glued themselves, their bodies, to the security plexiglass to get elected officials' attention. And guess what? They got their attention. On May 1st, the UK Parliament announced an environment and climate emergency, making them the first parliament in the world to do so. Worth getting your clothes off for? Yeah, I'd say so. Half-hearted political attempts are so done. I mean, California Senator Dianne Feinstein, she's never going to live down that dismissively patronizing, "How old are you? Did you vote for me?" moment. I mean, when those California middle schoolers went to her office, they just wanted a little satisfaction. They just wanted her to sign on to the Green New Deal. Senator Feinstein must be rewatching that viral video, wondering where did she go wrong? What was the moment? How could she play it differently if that moment ever came up again? The thing is, that moment is never going to come up again, because ignoring the facts and the kids, that is over. Sea level is rising, and so are the people. According to researcher Erica Chenoweth, nonviolent resistance achieves more long-term lasting change than any kind of armed uprising. Not only that, most importantly, it only takes 3.5% of the population to be done with the status quo to reach a tipping point and drive change. So the question to you, my friends, is, do you want to stand with Greta, Alexandria, AOC, Ed Markey, Bill McKibben? Do you believe... Are you ready to wear your t-shirt and be part of a positive eco chain reaction? I think this is a wave you might want to ride. So thank you for watching. Stay tuned, subscribe, hit that button, and I will see you next time. Thanks so much.